Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Captain Madlove coming at you live and in person with yet, I think, our very first tutorial page from the Captain's Patreon log. Coming at you live from the Captain's Court. Today, I have for you, I thought that we should document my journey to oil painting minis. And I did some research, went out into the world, and accumulated what I thought was the minimum number of supplies that you might need to get started. And have brought them here to you to show you what I think you might need, that you can save yourself a little time and a little money. Let's see. We shall start with the all right. So the paints that I have chosen for this adventure are the Williamsburg. These are handmade oil color. And the reason that I chose these is because they come in a very nice little package with all of your base colors that you would need. You are going to have some knowledge of mixing colors to get what you want out of this. And on top of this little box of starter colors, I recommend you get yourself a black, because black does not come in here. Okay, and so this particular box is a little bit expensive. Now, the reason I chose this is because these paints are extremely high pigmented. They're made in small batches, and therefore there is a lot of attention that is paid to manufacturing these. It's a family-owned business. And actually, you know, I didn't take a look at where they were made. Looks like New York. So, again, this is just a starter box. Let's see. Get in here and I can show you what we got. Okay? So we've got a nice big fat tube of titanium white. We've got a burnt sienna and a lemon ochre, which is, and you know, you're going to need an ochre color for mixing skin here between these and the white. And of course, green for the shadows, blue for colder shadows. They've got a deeper blue, which is the ultramarine. They've got the alizarin crimson, so you can create your own purple. A cadmium red. And a yellow light. So with these colors, you can mix all of the colors in between. They're very small tubes, so they leave you room for expansion, and it saves you a lot of money. I mean, this particular box, you could probably buy 2 large tubes of paint for the price of this one box with all of the starter colors in it. I do recommend a high-grade, professional quality, highly pigmented oil color to start your adventure. That way you are not struggling. You know, it's going to be enough of a transition just to go into oils, but to be struggling with that transition because the product isn't good is a terrible place. So we shall take these and set them aside, and we will go on to creating ourselves a little palette. Okay, I didn't go out and buy anything extensive. I just got a little Tupperware container. I cut down some parchment paper for it. It has a lid, and ran a little test here. This has been sitting for a couple days with the lid on it. And as you can see, the oil paint is still and wet. So, oils do not dry out quickly. As long as you keep the lid on, you should be able to keep those colors for days. Now, you can get yourself a fancy palette if you want to, but in this case, I just went with a leftover Tupperware container. Very inexpensive. Just starting out, didn't want to get too excited with it. Now, that next step is going to be brushes. I got my glasses on here so I can read properly. So, you're going to need a variety of brushes. I hope you've got a pen and paper and you're writing this down. So my recommendations on the brushes are that you get, first of all, you're going to really like working with Kalansky if you're working with oils. A couple of synthetics will also come in handy depending on what you are doing. But just for basics and just to get started, I think you're going to need a 3, a 1, a 4 or 5 depending on the company. I got my brushes from Dick Blick. There you go. Got my brushes from Dick Blick because if I buy 5 brushes, then I get like 40% off all the other brushes. I got a Earltech Eurotech 2 because it's synthetic and it can take, you know, a little bit of a beating. I got a Winsor Newton 0 here. Couple Dick Blicks 2s. So basically, you're going to do a 0. You know, you need things for eyes and very small detail. A 1. Couple of 2s. A 4. And maybe a 6. And then if you want to get a brush for larger areas, you could get yourself a flat. Okay. If you wanted something that would scrub up in areas or push paint, you could get yourself a round blender. But for starters, 0. 1, 2, at least a couple of 2s, 4, and a 6 for painting miniatures. And you're gonna want those all to be round, okay? Looking a little bit like this. Same as you would with the acrylics, okay? A little bit of belly, nice fine tip. And I'm gonna recommend the natural hair. This is a Red Sable by Dick Blick. This is their size 4. When it's wet, it holds a nice tip. They're reasonably priced. Called the Master Stroke. All right, so that's just basic. Now, because one thing you do not want to do is you do not want to use these brushes for your acrylic painting, okay? If you choose to snag some of your acrylic painting brushes to paint with oils, go ahead, but just don't put them back in with your acrylics, because that's a bad idea. That'll end up causing your acrylics to lift. All right, so the other thing you're going to need is some odorless paint thinner. Now, I'm recommending, this is my favorite to work with, you know, throughout the years, even when I was canvas painting, because it is odorless. And what this does is this really makes your life indoors a lot easier. For the paint, the mineral spirits that have the odor, working in a very small space, and so you want to try to reduce that. Now, one of the other things that I do for this is I get this container with a big spring in the bottom. Okay, when you fill this, you want to be about 1/2 inch over the top of the spring. The spring helps rinse the brushes and get them clean. Also, what it does, let me make sure that it's not leaking. Okay, because I want to show you that the sediment will go to the bottom. And that really does, well, oh, got my spring weird now. There we go. So you want to be like about 1/2 to 3/4 inch over the top of that spring to rinse your brushes. And I highly recommend that you get one of these. Even though it's odorless, one of the things that this really does is helps it from evaporating into your studio. So you can just keep your container of cleaning fluid in its container. The lid helps keep it from evaporating so you don't waste it. This is not inexpensive, but as far as I'm concerned, this is about the best that money can buy. There's a couple others that I like, but they are not as low fume as this one. So I'm going to recommend this odorless thinner for your studio. And then I kind of went a little bit farther and I got a couple of varnishes that are designed for oils. I got the gloss varnish and the matte varnish, and the reason that I did that is because I also got some Galkide mixing medium. What this does is speeds up the drying process. Okay, so I can leave my mini sit overnight and my oil paints are going to dry, but it does make them a little shinier. So you know how I do not like shiny in the shadows. I picked up some matte varnish so that I could go in and put the matte varnish in my shadows or eliminate shine from any area that I didn't want it. The other thing I had to take into consideration is my high gloss eyes that I do, and some areas that I tend to like with a very glossy effect. I'm able to pump up the gloss by using this gloss varnish. Now, you do need to seal over your varnish. That's going to be in our video number 2 when we've completed our miniature, because this does state that it can be removed. Hold on just a moment and I will tell you. Gamsol. So that indicates to me that we may need to varnish over our varnish, but I'm still doing a little research, so bear with me on that. We'll have that in video number 2. In the meantime, I bought 2 different types. One, the Galkide Light will keep my brush strokes. The other is supposed to help eliminate my brush strokes. Both help with drying time. So I have done that so that if I want texture, I've got one, and if I want to eliminate texture and be smooth, I've got the other. But basically, that is everything that I have done. So we've got the collection here, palette, and of course our brushes. And this is what I've determined for starting. You do not need to get these. It might be going a little bit far. I'd say if you did, maybe you could just get one of these to help dry, and then maybe since this kind of makes it glossy, you might want to get the matte varnish. So let's take those 2 out. So downsizing, you could probably go with just these things here, plain and simple. There you go. So you've got some odorless minerals, you've got the container for the odorless minerals, you've got your starter set of oils, you've got a little recycled palette there, you've got a mixing agent so that you can help speed up the drying a little bit. You do not need this because you can thin your paints with the odorless mineral spirits, and it also helps speed it up a little bit. I decided I wanted to go with a mixing medium. So you can make that decision, and then you've got your nice matte varnish that you can get into your shadows and varnish with. And then of course, you know, it's going to be about 4 or 5 brushes. So I'd say 5 brushes to start with that you want to get. And remember, you don't want to use these brushes with your acrylics. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the beginning to our oil painting journey. A page from the Captain's Patreon log. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. You can obtain all of these products at dickblick.com if you are in the United States. All of these can be delivered to your doorstep if you are not in the United States. I do not know if they send things like the odorless spirit and the mixing agents in the mail. I know you can get the oil paints. I know you can get the brushes. This came from my cupboard. You'll have to do that for yourself, the little palette there. But they can also be obtained at any major art store. There's lots of small, family-owned, really good oil paints out there that are highly pigmented. So do a little bit of research. And in a nutshell, that's it. Until our next video on oil paints, I will see you. Remember, between now and then, to grab brushes, minis. I don't think it's that order. I think it's brushes, paints, and minis. And get your fucking paint on. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat below. I'd love to hear about any suggestions, referrals to people in the UK for obtaining these products, and or questions you may have about our oil painting adventure. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Don't be a stranger. You know where to find me.